All right, here we go. Wednesday, April 29th. Let's keep these videos under 5 minutes. Yesterday we talked about bacteria. Today we're going to talk about one kind of a tricky one and a fungal. So today we're going to start off with something called conjunctivitis. You guys typically hear it as pink eye. So what's pink eye? Well, you get a red, bloodshot eye, very itchy, raw. You'll have a fever associated with it, and you'll have discharge, and that would constantly that kind of seep out. Okay, it's that discharge, that pus, that infection. So let's understand this now. Why is it tricky or whatever? When you go to the doctor to see if you're getting tested for pink eye, or if they try to draw blood for any type of reasons, they're going to check something, and it's going to call lymphocytes and granulocytes. So when they draw blood, and you can go onto your my chart account at St. Elizabeth or whatever at any time, whatever test that you drew. And if you're wondering about something, you're going to see some type of abbreviation, and it's going to say LYM, LYMPH, lymph. Something is going to have some type of abbreviation for lymphocytes. Well, if your lymphocytes are high, okay, outside that normal range, it's typically going to mean that you have a viral infection. If your granulocytes are high, that typically means that you have a bacterial infection. So since pink eye could be either, a lot of times they're going to test you for one, and then they have to send it out, the culture out to a lab to make sure it's positive, kind of like when you get strep throat test. Yeah, they can kind of identify a pretty good indication that in the doctor's office, but they got to send it to the lab to make sure. Well, same thing would be true for pink eye. So oftentimes a doctor is going to go ahead and give you an antibiotic because most likely if it is a bacteria, it'll take care of itself. It'll do the trick. And it could be an oral antibiotic. Sometimes people try to treat it with a topical antibiotic, but oral antibiotic would typically do the job, reduce the fever, reduce the problems with the eye. That's really all we're going to talk about with pink eye, except for this. Who's more likely to get pink eye? Well, it's females. Why females? Well, oftentimes they will share makeup, all right, mascara, eyeshadow, and all that other type of stuff. And if I would happen to have, or a female would happen to have pink eye, and she is now touching that eye, all right, and you have any type of discharge on it, and she gives it to somebody else, and they use it. Well, that's an easy way you can transmit it to somebody. So you can transmit it from person to person, person to object, and object back to the person. Okay. There's a myth that you can get pink eye from farting on a pillow. That is not true. You cannot get it that way. But you could get it from a pillow. Like if somebody would happen to be sleeping on the pillow, wake up, and somebody else would then put their head right back on that pillow, where if that discharge had made that pillow wet in that area and somebody else then touched it, that's a way that you could contract it other than makeup and other ways that we mentioned. Other thing we're going to talk about today is ringworm. Ringworm is not a worm, folks. It's not, okay? It's a fungal infection. Well, where do we typically see this, especially in high schools? So a lot of time with your football teams and your wrestling teams. So fungus likes to grow in warm, moist areas. Well, locker rooms, warm, moist areas. People take showers. It's hot, steamy, a lot of bodies in there. Wrestling mats, same thing. So oftentimes if you know somebody on a wrestling team, oftentimes they will bleach those mats almost on an everyday basis after practice, and they should. The problem is, a lot of times with ringworm, you will not be able to identify where you contracted it from because the incubation period is 1 to 3 weeks. So if I was a wrestler and I wrestled at Simon Kenton High School one day, and I then wrestled at Ryle one day later in the week, and then I wrestled at Campbell County the following week, and then I come up with ringworm, I really don't necessarily know where I contracted it. So ringworm can happen anywhere on your body, and it's simply, the reason why they call it a ringworm is because it makes simply a ring, and it'll be shaded in. All right. You might also see a double ring on occasions. All right. And if you're wondering about if the infection is growing, you could always draw with a, sorry, I don't have it. Yeah, I do. Another, like a pen or whatever around your skin, and to see if I drew it around here and I see this new ring is outside a pencil mark, you can always to see if, wow, that's wider than the screen ring. my infection is spreading. Okay, I need to get treatments. Well, how am I going to get treatments? Do not go with an antibiotic. This is a fungus, so an antibiotic isn't going to help. So what do you need? An antifungal. Well, what's a common antifungal medicine that you might want to use? Something like Lotrimin. And we hear about ringworm, and somebody says, "Oh, that's so gross," and all that type of stuff. It's a fungus, guys. A lot of times, you guys are going to get some types of fungal infections. Whether you get athlete's foot, well, that's a fungus infection. Gentlemen, if you guys get jock itch, that's a fungal infection. So let's not just look at the word and then automatically have judgment towards that. Please understand the entire process of how viruses, bacteria, and fungus work, and so that's that for today. And tomorrow we will go back in. We'll actually start non-communicable diseases. So we'll catch you tomorrow. All right, take care.